Hello everyone and welcome back to this Vulkan programming series. Our goal for this tutorial is to change this triangle into a square and put a texture on it. I've modified this texture project to look like our startup triangle project that the engine provided for us. So our first step to changing this triangle is to change vertices, which is in this function called generateQuad. So one thing we should remember is that when creating vertices for objects, our origin is in the center of the window. And also another good note is that our y is inverted in this case. So it would be x1, y1, x minus 1, y1, x minus 1, y minus 1, and then x1, y minus 1. So 1, 1, minus 1, 1. This would be minus 1. And then we need to create another vertex because squares have 4 vertices. And this is 1. And we can make this white. And also don't forget to change the indices for this square. Okay, so our next step is to put a texture on this. So right here, the engine has provided a struct for us, a texture struct. And here it says it contains all Vulkan objects that are required to store and use a texture. But the main ones that we'll be using is the descriptor and the sampler. A descriptor is basically just a way for our shaders to access like buffers and images. And so the way we create a descriptor is we first have to allocate a descriptor from a descriptor pool, a lot like how we allocate command buffers from command pools. And here I'll just be using his way, like his format for creating descriptor pools. And so our first parameter is the type of descriptor. So this type of descriptor will be a combined image sampler. And basically, oh man, I messed it up. And basically it just allows us to use images as textures. And also don't forget to change this to 2 because we now have 2 sets. We now have a uniform buffer and we have a combined image sampler. So after we allocate the descriptor from the descriptor pool, we set the layout. And again, we'll be using his format for creating. Oh no. So our first parameter for creating this is the type. Once again, we can just take it from here. And then the next parameter is the stage flag. We want the fragment shader because our samplers will be in the fragment shader, not the vertex shader. And then the binding, which is 1. Alright. And then the last thing to creating a descriptor is actually writing the descriptor. So here we can write the descriptor by using the same way he does it. And it's an image sampler. Oops. So our first parameter is the destination set, which is just our handle, which we defined up here. So it's just a VK descriptor set handle. And then the next parameter is the type. So once again, it's a combined image sampler right here. Next parameter is the binding, and the last parameter is the image info, a reference to the image info. So we call our texture handle, and then we get our descriptor from the handle. Okay, so now that we've created the descriptor, now we can get rid of the color. We can get rid of the color, and we can have texture coordinates instead, because we won't be seeing a color anymore. And also it's a 2-component vector. So we go back into our vertices, and since we changed this from a 4-component vector to a 2-component vector, we can get rid of these. And then another thing to know is, yeah, this looks correct. So another thing to know is for our texture coordinates, the origin is in the top left. So right here we have, what do we have? So we have 1, 1. So x is 1, y goes down, y is inverted still. X is 0, y is 1. So x is 0, y is 1, goes down 1. 0, 0, that's the origin in the top left, and then 1. So x goes 1, and then y is 0. So after that, we need to set up the vertex descriptions, because here it says we still have a color when we really have texture coordinates. And then also we just need R and G, R32, G32, because this is a 2-component vector. We don't need RGB anymore because, yeah, it's a 2-component vector. So then after we've changed that, now we just have to change the shaders and load the texture. So in our shaders, in the vertex shader, we just have to change the colors to texture coordinates again, and they're 2-component vectors. And then in our fragment shader, yes, this is okay. In our fragment shader, we need our sampler, right? So our binding for our sampler was 1. And then we can change this again to a 2-component vector because it's a color. And then we're going to create our own color now. And it'll be a texture. And it'll take the parameters of our sampler and of our texture coordinates. And the last parameter it takes in is the level of detail. So the lower it is, the more detailed it is. So hopefully this should work now. Don't forget to compile our shaders. So we just click Generate Spear V. And then the last thing is we need to load the texture, which I've already done. This is the file path. So we get the asset path, which is the data folder here. We get the texture, and then our texture is right here, pattern 02 BC2. And here it says BC2, so it tells us our format. So our format would be BC2 unorm block. And then this is by forced linear tiling, so we don't want linear tiling in this case. And also another thing is that we forgot to in our destructor, we should remember to destroy our texture. Okay. So now let's see if this works. Nope. No, it's giving us an error somewhere. Oh, okay. We accidentally added another parentheses, and here, what did we do? Oh, we did the same thing twice. Wow. Okay. Alright, so there it is. So next time we'll be looking at cube maps, and that's all. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.